The neighborhood looked like it had been ripped from a realtor's brochure: manicured lawns, pastel siding, and cul-de-sacs looping like ribbons. The kind of place where neighbors waved out of obligation, and the only thing more rigid than the hedges were the HOA rules stapled to every mailbox. That was why the commotion stood out. People were peeking from curtains, watering cans left to overflow, dogs forgotten mid-walk. At the center of it all was Karen. Not a Karen, the Karen. HOA president, self-proclaimed guardian of suburban order, wielder of passive-aggressive emails that could rival congressional bills in length. Today, though, her weapon wasn't a keyboard. It was a stack of paperwork clutched in one hand and a scowl carved deep enough to scare paint off siding. Her target was the new girl on the block, Maddie. 28, practical jeans, plain t-shirt, hair in a no-nonsense ponytail. She'd moved into the vacant ranch house 3 weeks ago. Friendly enough, said hi when spoken to, but clearly uninterested in block parties or HOA barbecues. Which, to Karen, meant she might as well have spray-painted down with order across her garage door. Karen jabbed the paperwork at Maddie's chest. You must join the homeowners association. It's required. It's in the bylaws. Everyone else pays their dues. Maddie didn't flinch. I've read the property deed. My house isn't under the HOA. Her tone was calm, almost bored. The neighbors hanging back shifted nervously. Everyone knew that ranch house was an exception. It was built just before the HOA formed. Karen had tried and failed twice before to rope in its owners, but she never forgot a grudge. Karen leaned in closer, voice rising. Don't play games. You live here. You enjoy the amenities, the neighborhood watch, the... What amenities? Maddie raised an eyebrow. The plastic chairs by the pool that hasn't held water in 5 years? The Christmas lights that never get taken down? Forgive me if I'm not dazzled. A chuckle slipped from one of the onlookers, quickly smothered when Karen shot a glare their way. Her nostrils flared. This isn't optional. You pay the fees, or you face the consequences. Maddie tilted her head, studying her like a cat studies a toy it hasn't decided to shred yet. Are you threatening me over a newsletter and a lawn height policy? Karen's voice sharpened. It's not just a newsletter. It's our community. And freeloaders don't get to tear it down. The crowd was swelling now, people edging closer, phones hovering but not quite filming. Nobody wanted to miss the showdown, but nobody wanted to be in it either. Maddie crossed her arms. I told you once. I'm not joining. That's the end of it. Something cracked then, something in Karen's composure, something in her need to dominate. She stepped back, reached into her oversized handbag, and pulled out a small, snub-nosed revolver. The kind of weapon that looked less like a tool and more like a tantrum in metal form. The air changed instantly. Gasps, shouts, the scrape of retreating feet. A dog barked furiously before being yanked inside. Maddie didn't move. Karen's voice was trembling, but her hand wasn't. If you won't join willingly, maybe you'll learn respect the hard way. You think you're above the rules, but nobody is above me. Above you? Maddie's tone didn't even crack. She glanced down at the weapon pointed at her chest as if Karen were holding a hairdryer. That's how you run a neighborhood? Guns over lawn clippings? Karen's eyes darted around at the watching crowd, hungry for validation. She's a danger. She's refusing the HOA, what else will she refuse? Today it's dues, tomorrow it's safety. This is how neighborhoods fall apart. Pretty sure neighborhoods fall apart when you start aiming firearms at the people living in them, Maddie said dryly. Someone shouted, call 911. A phone rang in a trembling hand. A teenager whispered, oh my God, she's actually pointing it at her. Maddie's expression never shifted. If anything, her calm unsettled the crowd more than the gun did. Where anyone else would have screamed, begged, or tried to bolt, she just stood there. Steady. Eyes locked on Karen, voice level, movements deliberate. That calm wasn't natural. It wasn't bravado either. It was practiced. Karen mistook it for arrogance. Her finger flexed dangerously near the trigger. "You're going to regret mocking me." Maddie's hand drifted slightly toward her hip, almost casual, like she was brushing a wrinkle from her shirt. Except the movement was too deliberate, too measured. Karen didn't notice. The neighbors did. A ripple went through the crowd, confusion, whispers, someone catching their breath. For the first time, Karen looked unsure. Her voice cracked as she hissed, "What are you smiling at?" Maddie's lips curved the faintest bit. Her eyes didn't leave Karen's. "Just wondering how far you're willing to go over $30 and a badly photocopied newsletter." The revolver trembled in Karen's grip, but she held it steady. Maddie's hand hovered inches from her hip. The space between them tightened like a noose. The street had never been so silent. Not during storms, not during blackouts, not even during last year's Christmas caroling fiasco. It was the kind of silence that knew something was about to break. And then, Karen took one step closer. The barrel of the gun gleamed in the sunlight, trained squarely at Maddie's chest. Maddie's fingers twitched. The crowd inhaled as one. Karen's knuckles whitened around the revolver. The barrel wavered, but not enough to matter, an untrained hand, still lethal. Sweat slid down her temple, cutting through the foundation she'd layered on thick that morning. Her breathing was ragged, fueled by fury more than fear. Across from her, Maddie stayed steady. Her eyes never blinked, never twitched. The only movement was the faint flex in her jaw and the subtle shift of her right hand, still hovering near her hip. She looked more like a coiled spring than a frightened woman. The crowd was frozen in place. Mothers dragged their children backward, teens whispered furiously into phones, and one middle-aged man, Mr. Hawkins, notorious lawn ornament hoarder, whispered, "She's insane. She's actually insane." Karen snapped her head at him. "Shut up. This is about all of you. She thinks she can live here without paying, and the moment she gets away with it, the rest of you will, too. Then what happens? Chaos. Decay. Property values in the gutter." Her voice cracked at the end, hysteria spilling through the edges. She turned back, gun steady again on Maddie. Maddie didn't answer. She just let the silence gnaw at Karen's performance, like air hissing out of a balloon. Then, far down the block, came the faint wail of sirens. The neighbors stirred. Some whispered thank God, others stepped back even farther, worried about what the sound would push Karen into doing. Karen's face twitched. "See what you did? You forced this. You brought police into our neighborhood." "Funny," Maddie said softly. "You're the one with the gun." Karen's lips curled into a twisted smile. "And you're the one about to learn who runs this street." The sirens grew louder, swelling until 2 patrol cars rolled into the cul-de-sac, lights strobing red and blue. They skidded to a halt, doors flying open. Deputies spilled out, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Drop the gun! Put it down now! Hands where we can see them!" The crowd scattered farther back. A few people ducked behind cars, as though gunfire might rain down any second. Karen didn't move. She straightened her back and yelled, "She's the one. She's trespassing. She's threatening me. I was defending myself." One deputy, young, voice cracking under stress, shouted, "Set the weapon on the ground right now." Maddie stood between them and Karen, still calm, still unnervingly collected. She raised her voice just enough for the deputies to hear. "I'm not the one with the firearm. Focus on her." Karen jabbed the revolver closer. "Don't listen to her. She's a liar, she's a menace, she refuses the HOA." That last part earned her a few bewildered stares from the deputies. They weren't trained for standoffs over block dues. The older deputy, heavier set and clearly the senior, barked, "Lady, this is your last warning. Drop the weapon." Karen's hand trembled. Her face was pale but burning with defiance. "She's manipulating all of you. I'm the president here. I make the rules. Maddie's lips parted slightly. Enough. She drew in a slow breath, her hand brushing back her t-shirt in one smooth, practice motion. Her badge caught the light first, clipped at her hip, gleaming for all to see. Right below it sat her service pistol, holstered but unmistakable. The younger deputy froze mid-command. The older one blinked hard, recalibrating what he was seeing. Karen's tirade faltered. Her mouth hung open, eyes darting from the badge to Maddie's steady gaze. What is this? Maddie finally spoke, voice sharp, trained, carrying authority that made every syllable heavier than gunmetal. Karen, you are pointing a loaded firearm at a sworn officer of the law. You are seconds away from a felony charge that will haunt you longer than your HOA presidency. The crowd erupted, gasps, shouts, murmurs spilling like water through cracked glass. Someone finally dared to lift a phone and record. Karen's face flushed crimson. No, you're lying. You're trying to trick me. You're just some little. The older deputy cut her off, his voice now thunderous. President or not, put the weapon down. Now. Maddie's eyes never left Karen's. She raised one hand slowly, palm open, steadying the scene. She wasn't drawing yet. She wasn't escalating, just controlling. Her internal monologue ticked like a metronome. Keep her finger off the trigger. Don't spook her. Keep the neighbors safe. Keep the deputies steady. Don't let her ego get her killed. Karen's ego, however, was a raging fire. She shook her head violently. You think a shiny badge means you get to walk in here and ignore me? This is MY community. MY rules. You don't belong here. Maddie's tone dropped lower, a measured calm meant to cut through the chaos. Karen, I live here. This is my street now, too. And the law outranks your newsletter. Put the gun down. Karen's breathing quickened, chest heaving like a bull ready to charge. The gun quivered in her hand, bouncing between Maddie and the deputies. Don't tell me what to do, she stammered. I won't be humiliated. Not in my own neighborhood. The younger deputy muttered into his shoulder, MIC, eyes wide, we've got a 10-32 in progress. Suspect armed, non-compliant. Sheriff is on site. The word sheriff echoed strangely over the radio, earning confused looks from the backup officers beginning to arrive. Karen blinked. Sheriff? Maddie took one step forward, slow, deliberate. That's right. Sheriff Madison Cole. And you're going to hand me that revolver before you do something you can't take back. The murmurs in the crowd swelled into a wave. People who had cowered behind cars now craned their necks, whispering, "She's the sheriff," over and over. Karen's mask cracked. For the first time, her face registered something like doubt. But the doubt was tangled in humiliation, and humiliation was her fuel. She spat on the ground. You don't scare me. You can't scare me. This is MY Block. Her revolver jerked, swinging toward the crowd as if to remind everyone she still held power. Mothers screamed, dragging their kids tighter behind them. The deputies tensed, guns aimed squarely at her now. The older one barked, "Drop it or we drop you." Maddie's heart pounded, though she never showed it. Her muscles tightened, ready to active. Karen's twitch turned into a squeeze. The silence that followed was suffocating. The strobe lights painted the street in frantic colors. Karen's chest heaved, revolver trembling. And then, she shrieked. A high, furious sound, half rage, half fear. Maddie's hand shifted closer to her weapon, fingers brushing the grip. She didn't pull. Not yet. But the line had thinned to a thread. The crowd held its breath. Deputies locked in. Karen shook with fury, one word ripping from her throat. Never. The word never still hung in the air when the neighborhood seemed to tilt on its axis. The sound ricocheted off siding and fences, clanging inside every chest like a warning bell. Karen's revolver jittered between targets, Maddie, the deputies, the crowd, as if her fury itself couldn't decide who deserved punishment first. Maddie stood rooted, a statue carved from steadiness, but inside she felt the clock ticking down. Every second Karen stayed armed increased the chance someone panicked, someone misread a twitch, someone died. The senior deputy shouted again, "Drop the weapon." His voice cracked this time, not from weakness but from the unbearable pressure of knowing he might have to pull the trigger on a neighbor in a sundress. And then, as if the scene wasn't already stretched to its limit, another voice broke in. "Karen!" Heads turned. From the far end of the block waddled a man in a golf shirt tucked too tightly into khaki shorts. His belly bounced with every step. A receding hairline gleamed under the streetlights. Mr. Randall, Karen's husband. He jogged awkwardly toward the barricade of squad cars, face purple with indignation. "Don't you touch her! Don't you dare lay a hand on my wife!" "Sir, stay back," a deputy barked, raising a hand. Randall ignored it. He puffed his chest like a mall cop at full strut. "She's the president of this HOA. You can't arrest her for doing her job." Maddie's jaw clenched. Perfect. An enabler with no grip on reality. Karen's eyes lit up at the sight of him. "Tell them, Randall. Tell them this is our community." Randall waved his arms, oblivious to the fact that a dozen firearms were drawn around him. "This is a misunderstanding. She's only protecting our property values." The crowd groaned in unison, a sound somewhere between disbelief and exhaustion. But Randall wasn't the only reinforcement. Out of the shadows of driveways, a trio of HOA board members shuffled forward. Clipboards in hand, polos ironed to rigidity, they looked like accountants summoned to a knife fight. "Let all calm down," said Mrs. Patterson, treasurer, voice sharp as vinegar. "Sheriff or not, you don't understand the bylaws. That house," she pointed a manicured nail at Maddie's ranch, "was grandfathered in, but exceptions can be amended. We have documents proving she's subject to HOA jurisdiction now." She pulled a folder from under her arm and waved it like a talisman. Pages fluttered in the breeze, signatures scrawled across them in suspiciously similar ink. Maddie raised one eyebrow. "Forged paperwork? That's your move." The deputies glanced at each other, uneasy. They weren't there to adjudicate property law, and the last thing they wanted was to dive into HOA politics while a gun waved around. Karen seized the moment. "See? I told you. She's lying. She must join. She's breaking the rules, and I'm the only one with the guts to stop her." Maddie let a thin smile crack her composure, just enough to sting. "Karen, the only rule you're breaking is the one about pointing firearms at people." That earned a few nervous chuckles from the crowd, quickly swallowed when Karen jerked the revolver higher. Maddie's voice turned cool, surgical. "Those papers? Worth less than the ink you smeared on them. You know it. I know it. The county registrar knows it. The law doesn't bend just because you want to boss around one more house." Mrs. Patterson's lips thinned, but she didn't argue. The older deputy seized the gap. "This is your last chance. Drop it before someone gets hurt." But Karen's mania had calcified into something harder. Her husband's cheers, the board's flimsy support, it all inflated her delusion like a balloon about to burst. "You don't get it," she shrieked, spit flying. "Without me, this place crumbles. People let weeds grow, paint peel, fences rot. I'm the reason this neighborhood is safe. I'm the reason you people can even live here." The crowd murmured uneasily. Some of them, truth be told, had tolerated Karen for years precisely because they feared this brand of meltdown. Watching it roar in daylight, though, stripped away the illusion. Maddie's chest rose slowly as she drew in another breath. "Karen, listen to yourself. You're not protecting anyone. You're holding your neighbors hostage over lawn clippings. Let it go." Karen shook her head so violently her hair whipped her cheeks. "No. No one humiliates me. No one disobeys me. Not in my own neighborhood." And then, her gun swung wide. Not at Maddie this time. Not at the deputies. At the crowd. Specifically, at Mr. Hawkins, the lawn ornament hoarder who had laughed earlier. Hawkins froze, eyes bulging, mouth working soundlessly. The crowd shrieked. People shoved backward, knocking over lawn chairs and flower pots. Children wailed. Karen's finger twitched. Just a twitch, but enough. Maddie's instincts roared alive. Training snapped into her muscles, coiled tight, ready to spring. If she squeezes, Hawkins dies. The deputies flinched, weapons rising higher. The older one barked, "Do not point at civilians." "Drop it!" Karen's face twisted into a snarl. Maybe a lesson has to be taught. The moment stretched, brittle and sharp as glass. Maddie's hand slid onto her weapon, grip steady, heart pounding. She didn't want to fire. Didn't want blood in the street. But the line was gone, shredded by Karen's madness. She locked eyes with Hawkins. His terror mirrored back at her. Karen's revolver quivered, her finger tightening. Maddie's voice tore through the chaos, booming with command, "Karen! Don't move!" The crowd sucked in a collective breath. The standoff was no longer just about HOA dues. It was about who lived through the next second. The revolver wavered, finger curling tighter on the trigger. Hawkins whimpered, hands trembling in the air, his plastic pink flamingo army back home suddenly feeling like poor insurance. Maddie's voice thundered again, her training ripping through the chaos. "Karen! Drop! IT! Now!" For the first time, the command carried a snap so sharp it felt like a whip cracking across the cul-de-sac. Even the deputies froze at the sound. Karen jerked in shock. Her eyes darted to Maddie, as if trying to process that the quiet, unassuming neighbor she'd been harassing was suddenly the immovable wall between her and ruin. Maddie's stance shifted, legs braced, grip firm around the butt of her holstered weapon. Every nerve in her body screamed readiness. If Karen's finger twitched 1 millimeter more, she'd act. She didn't want to. God, she didn't want to, but protecting Hawkins, protecting everyone else, was the oath she carried. The sirens in the distance swelled again, backup units converging. Radios crackled. Neighbors sobbed into their phones. And in the middle of it all, time slowed to a razor-thin thread between disaster and salvation. "Don't make me do this, Karen," Maddie said, her voice low but vibrating with force. "Put the gun down, and you walk away alive." Karen's breath hitched. She shook her head violently, sweaty hair sticking to her face. "No one talks to me like that. No one disrespects me in my own neighborhood." Her husband shouted desperately from behind the police line, "Karen, listen. Just stop, okay? Please?" His voice cracked, not with loyalty this time, but fear. The board members who'd once held their clipboards high were now shrinking into the crowd, suddenly allergic to their own paperwork. Karen's revolver jerked toward Hawkins again. That was the moment. Maddie's body moved before thought. In a blur, her pistol cleared the holster, rising in a fluid arc. Her voice cut like a blade, "Drop it." The crack of authority stunned Karen long enough for Maddie to surge forward. One step, two, her free hand slashed across, striking Karen's wrist with a precision born of endless drills. The revolver clattered to the asphalt, skittering across the street. Gasps exploded from the crowd. A child screamed. A deputy lunged, boot-pinning the weapon to the ground as another officer dove in, grabbing Karen's arms and twisting them behind her. Karen shrieked like a banshee. "No! You can't do this to me! I'm in charge! I'm in charge!" Her knees buckled as the cuffs clicked shut. She twisted and spat, eyes wild, but the fight was gone. The HOA queenpin had been dethroned by steel bracelets and a calm woman who refused to be cowed. The crowd exhaled as one, a tidal wave of breath no one realized they'd been holding. Hawkins collapsed onto his front lawn, sobbing into his hands, plastic gnomes silently bearing witness. Mothers hugged children tight. Phones filmed every angle, neighbors whispering, "Did you see that?" and she's the sheriff, like the words were too big to carry. Randall stumbled forward, face slack with disbelief. Karen? Karen! His voice broke when deputies hauled her toward the patrol car, still shrieking about bylaws and conspiracies. Mrs. Patterson lowered her clipboard, pale as chalk. We didn't mean. Maddie cut her off with a single glance. Not a word spoken, but the kind of look that pinned a person to their sins. Patterson retreated into the crowd. The senior deputy approached, sweat dripping down his temple, voice tight. Sheriff Cole, you want to handle the arrest paperwork yourself. Maddie shook her head, holstering her weapon with a clean snap. No. She's yours. Just make sure it sticks. Weapons charge, assault with a deadly weapon, menacing, the works. Don't let her HOA cronies talk her out of this one. The deputy nodded sharply, almost grateful for the clarity. Karen's voice still pierced the night as they shoved her into the back seat. You'll all regret this. I am the HOA. I am this community. Without me, you're nothing. The door slammed, cutting her off. Silence rolled back over the cul-de-sac, broken only by sniffles and the rustle of leaves in the warm evening air. Maddie turned, scanning the faces. Fear, or relief, all tangled together. She softened her stance, voice quieter now. Everyone's safe. That's what matters. A man in the crowd muttered, never thought the HOA meetings would end in gunfire. Laughter bubbled out of a few throats, nervous, shaky, but laughter all the same. The tension cracked just enough for humanity to seep back in. Hawkins staggered over, still trembling. Sheriff, I thought I was dead. Thank you. Maddie gave him a small nod. You're welcome. And maybe, retire the 50 lawn flamingos. Just a suggestion. That earned a more genuine laugh from the crowd. Even Hawkins managed a watery chuckle. Deputies finished securing the scene, neighbors drifted back toward their homes, phones buzzing with texts already spinning the story into legend. Maddie lingered, letting the adrenaline ebb slowly. Randall sat on the curb, face in his hands, mumbling to no one. His world, propped up by Karen's iron grip, had shattered in front of everyone. Maddie walked past him, pausing just long enough to murmur, "Your wife's going to face consequences. Might be time you do some thinking of your own." She didn't wait for an answer. By the time the last squad car pulled away, the cul-de-sac looked almost normal again, except for the scorch of flashing lights still burned into everyone's retinas, and the echo of Karen's shrieks rattling around the block. Maddie headed back to her porch, her house still smelling faintly of fresh paint and cardboard boxes. She sat on the steps, elbows on her knees, finally allowing herself one long, tired sigh. The neighborhood wasn't perfect. It never would be. But tonight, it had shifted. Karen's reign of terror was broken, the illusion of her untouchable authority shattered. People had seen her madness laid bare. And they'd seen who really kept them safe. A few neighbors lingered at the edge of their lawns, hesitant but grateful. One waved. Another called softly, "Glad you moved in, Sheriff." Maddie gave a small wave back, a ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. Somewhere down the street, someone muttered, "Guess the HOA's next meeting is gonna be short." Another ripple of laughter followed. And just like that, the weight of the evening began to lift, not forgotten, not forgiven, but cracked open enough for healing. Maddie leaned back against the porch rail, eyes scanning the quiet street. She hadn't wanted this fight, hadn't sought it. But when it came to her doorstep, she met it. And she won, not with fear, not with bluster, but with steadiness. Tomorrow would bring paperwork, headlines, maybe even gossip-fueled drama about the sheriff who moved in. But for tonight, the neighborhood was safe, the stars were out, and the revolver sat in an evidence bag instead of shaking in Karen's hand. That was enough.